What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and this is The Strangers, the original one. I'm taking a second look at it because they made a sequel 16 years later? Why? I don't even know if it's a sequel. There's like The Strangers Chapter 1, Part 1, something like that. Is it a is it a prequel? I don't know what it is, but it sounds terrible. But props to Rennie Harlin for getting a movie to go theatrical, but also it's directed by Rennie Harlin. This one, however, is not, and is currently available on Max with audio description. So that's a huge plus. I probably would have reviewed it without because I've seen this film before, just to be able to talk about The Strangers. Since there's a reason to talk about The Strangers now, I didn't think there would be a reason to talk about The Strangers. I've seen this film once. It's one of those films where I was like, I'll see it once, but probably never have to see it again. Well, I'm seeing it again. And luckily, because it's been 16 years, there was a little bit of tension in the plot of the film because I didn't always remember where like the jump scares were. And this film is built a lot better than I remember. So stars Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler, basically the only two people in this film. Yeah, I mean they're so there are the people wearing the masks. I understand they're in the film. They're in the film quite a bit, but it's sort of like you don't know who they are. I'm sure like horror buffs know who they are, just like there are people who know who plays Jason in every Friday the 13th movie, even though he's wearing a mask the whole time, and Michael Myers and stuff like that. But they don't talk and you never see their face. So it's one of those things where it's like, not to disrespect the actors playing those roles, but literally anybody could be behind that mask right now. I have no idea. But as far as actual characters, it's about a couple in a cabin coming back from something. There's sort of this like weird vibe between the two of them. You know, like are they cool? Are they not cool? Are they going to get down? Are they not going to get down? You know, we get a little flash of like the party that they were just at, and now they're in this cabin, and there's an unease, almost immediate unease, because they're clearly being watched. There's this girl that like comes to the door and she knocks. She asks, is Amber home? I can't remember what the name of the girl is, but she's like, it's just, and they're like, no, you have the wrong house. And they're like out in the middle of nowhere. So there's just like this random girl who talks like she's stoned out of her mind. And it's unsettling. At least she knocks a lot harder than she's the knocking in this film is intense. um so yeah, it's this the reason why I really want to talk about this film isn't because this is the nuance of this film is in the building of the tension. It's all in perspective, and this is a film that shouldn't work for blind people. I've seen this film visually, and now I've experienced this film as a blind person. And it's a film that honestly shouldn't work as well as it does. So I was really sort of a little brokenhearted because there appeared to be no narrator at the end of this. There was no, narrated by blank. And I was like, oh my God, this is one of the best tracks I've heard in a long time. Why is no one credited with this? Um, this is fantastic. This has absolutely fantastic audio description to it because as a blind person, recognizing what this film is and remembering it, there are a lot of times where someone's like moving in the background, or it gives you a perspective shot of like they're being watched. It gives you that very uneasy feeling that like someone's always behind you, or you're being watched from somewhere. And it racks up the paranoia because for quite a while no one gets attacked in this film. It's just about building that vibe, building that theme up of isolation and fear and all the things that Liv Tyler goes through, because Scott Speedman runs to the store in the middle of the night and leaves her there, and she kind of goes through her own hell while he's away. So yeah, it's definitely got that going for it. And you're out in the middle of nowhere, and it does answer the question of phones. It does tackle that really fast, because she does have a house phone. It was back in 2008 when people still had house phones, and then also a cell phone, and they do tackle both of those in logical ways that work for the film. And it also, so it leaves her feeling even more isolated, even more like she's by herself. And all of the shots that I remember that were good little, because the jump scares here are not, sometimes you can tell they're about to come, because she's gonna like open the curtains and obviously something will be there. So some of those are like pretty obvious ones, but it also plays with the idea of she's standing there and then something moves behind her. Like you see somebody like move into a room in the house behind her, like walk across the hallway, and it's just like, but then it doesn't do anything. It's not like somebody just immediately charges at her or anything. It's very uneasy, creepy moments. Or somebody's like standing and she doesn't see them and is watching her inside the house. And she doesn't know that they've been inside the house yet. And we don't know how they're getting inside the house. We think they're all outside the house, just bothering with her, but somehow they're getting in. So it's a very unnerving film. I remember seeing this in theaters and being unnerved by it and being like, well, this wasn't a bad, scary movie. Not my favorite thing to watch, but also not bad. And that was kind of the vibe that everybody had back in the day, was generally we liked this. But also it's one of those films that's really hard to repeat, because then you just have, these guys are going to different people's houses. It's one of those things that can be like The Purge really quickly. Like the first Purge movie was interesting, and then we started making sequels. And they just got kind of out of hand, because then people wanted to explore, well, what could you do during the Purge? It's like, that's not the point of the first film. The point of the first film is the paranoia of being inside the house during the Purge, So the first film and then the rest of the franchise are two totally different things. So I feel like any sequel to The Strangers is just going to be like, okay, well, now we know what's up, so this is what they're going to do, and yep, okay, they're doing it, But as a standalone film, this film works. I have no idea what Renny Harlin is doing with the sequel. I imagine it is not great. Just knowing Renny Harlin's work of late, I'm gonna guess it's not great. But it's amazing that he's managed to continue to direct films. It's just props. So much props to that man for being able to continue to have a career. He must walk into every room and be like, I'm the director of Cliffhanger. And they're like, wow, I really loved that film. Of course you can direct this. Like, thank you. Yeah, so this is very good. The themes, the audio description makes sure that you get those different viewpoints, which is so integral to building that tension. I rarely get tension from horror films. I actually watch more horror films now as a blind person than I did as a sighted person, because I wasn't really big on gore and cheap jump scares. So if I knew a film was going to be cheap jump scares, a film like Smile, I never would have watched that. I would have heard that it was full of cheap jump. I would have been like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't mind watching films like this though, where it's building the tension, where it feels like everything is earned by the end of the film. And this is something that earns its scares. These strangers play with them long enough and slow enough, and they use the runtime of the film. It's not a very long film, it's about an hour and a half. But there's only two people in it, so there's really you can't go too long either, because there's only just so long you can play with two people effectively. And it's a good use of time, and the tension is just right, the editing is just right, it's the time, everything here is done really well, and the audio description really captures that. The only thing that I would say, if I had to be nitpicky at all about the audio description, would be the references to the masks. Like, if you don't know what a pinup girl mask or a baby doll mask looks like, you're just gonna have to imagine what that would look like, because it doesn't really tell you or describe you what their masks look like. It just tells you what they are. So if you were unfamiliar with the characters and had never seen them or didn't understand what that was, didn't get the reference, then you're out of luck. But that would be true of anything that wouldn't just name the mask. Like, if I was wearing a Jason mask and you didn't know what that was and you didn't understand, nobody ever told you what Jason's mask was, or Michael Myers mask or whatever, then, you know, to a lot of people it would be iconic. To a blind person who's never seen it or has not had that described to them before, it could also just be like, I don't know what that is. So they're just wearing masks. Is basically the takeaway if you don't get the reference. But they're just sort of creepy. It's creepy because they're not masks that you would normally think of to wear in situations like this. But then again, I think that's always, I mean, Jason essentially is just wearing a hockey mask. So that's always the thing about masks, is that they always seem to not be the scary ones. The Halloween masks, you know what I'm saying? Like the ones for the monsters, they're not one of those. They're always like it's rather normal ones. Anyway, I really dig The Strangers as a film. And I'm really glad it has fantastic audio description on Max. I'm saying Max specifically because I think this is the only place that has it right now. So if you want to see this film instead of the thing that's currently in theaters, check this one out if you have a Max subscription. Anyway, this is my second time seeing it, so it should be labeled the second look, and I'm giving The Strangers, I'm going to give it an A-. I actually think the audio description, if anything, really made me appreciate it more, because I don't ever feel the tension. I don't want to say ever. I rarely feel tension in horror films. And when I do, I appreciate it more, because it takes a lot. When you take the visual element out of jump scares and everything, and I'm telling you that, like, to hear gore described is a lot easier to take than to see it. So, and then monsters also, to hear them described is a lot easier to hear them described. Jump scares are really hard to time, because you either have to time them before or after, because it's almost every single director nowadays has to accompany a jump scare with a loud sound, so there isn't really an ability to describe them simultaneously. So it is really hard actually to craft a film that works well. But I felt the tension building, and I felt the tension building on a film I'd already seen before, which is really impressive. So yeah, I'm gonna give it an A-. I feel good about that grade. It's not a perfect film, but it worked. My attention was piqued. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I hope you enjoy this. And I will see you guys on the other side.